die. That's not what I'm not here to do. Let's pretend like we're sitting at home. We have wine, we have water, we have, some hard liquor perhaps, but it's to get a conversation going. The cards that I'm using, they're pictures that kind of to spark questions. What do you see in the picture? Here's what I'm seeing. How does this relate? So there, like I said, it's a conversation and it's a back and forth. And so I like to make my clients feel comfortable in a space of no judgment. And, after a session is over, they're just like, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. It just felt like I was talking to my friend. And I'm like, that's exactly what I wanted this to be for you,
Right. And it's important to develop that relationship with a client because I don't want to say in a way you are their actual best friend, but for lack of a purpose, at that moment, you are their best friend. You are the one that they can confide in and tell anything to and not worry, not have somebody pass judgment, scold them or tell, oh, you can't do this. It's just like, we have to get that feedback and that back and forth from a client, in order to ensure that we're doing what we need to do to help them progress.
And that is so important because I've had clients that sit across the table and they want to play, test the psychic. And I'm like that. Okay, well, we can, run down your time with, you trying to grill me on what I know when you can actually get something beneficial from this exchange and this interaction. Because 9 times out of 10, by the time we get down to about 5 minutes, that's when you're like, oh, and this makes so much sense. And let me tell you about blah, blah, blah. Buzzer's done. Like let's jump into what you're here for. Let me help you,
But I always turn away the ones that, cross the arms, say,
oh yeah.
You tell me. You're the psychic.
Yes.
It's like, I'm not here to prove anything. I said, I'm here to help you. I said, it's the same price whether you sit, stand, or walk out the door.
Yes. Yes.
And people need to understand and realize that, as a professional reader, time is very valuable. There's other people that we schedule with that we try to work with and try to help them improve. And sometimes clients aren't ready. And you do have to tell them, look, maybe we should reschedule for another time when you're a little bit more open to this particular process, because that's what it is.
Yes.
So now, what is it that you read?
First of all, I love reading. So everything to me is a sign. Everything is a clue, a message from the universe. But my tools of trade are tarot, Lenormand, and I cast charms, Carrie Paris's charms. Those are my go-to. Those are my go-to toolkit, so to speak. And I got started with Paris de Bono's. I know you had him on a little while ago with his Lenono and his Gypsy cards. So I do those. I'll pull those out every now and then, to add to a reading. But my main 3 are tarot, Lenormand, and casting charms.
Okay. Well, I do the Lenormands. I do the T cards. I also do the soul cards. I also read some charms, and I just started doing bone readings, and I'm learning that whole process. So for me, everything is like, I read somebody's 2018-14 in a cup of, or a bowl of what looked like goulash.
Oh, wow.
And they were just like, well, how did you get that out of a bowl of macaroni? I said, it's just a tool.
Everything is,
when you can set yourself aside and you can look at the symbols, the images, and look for things that are deeper, regardless of whether it's a tarot card, a Lenormand, tea cards, grains of sand, you can still find imagery that your intuitive side can work with.
Yes, I 100% agree. The important part is setting yourself aside.
I have an issue with that sometimes because I'm very linear.
Okay. Yeah. Before every reading, I always say, universe, I am just, the messenger. And whatever you have, I'm going to say it. It took me a while to get there, because my conscious mind wants to say, no, don't say that. That's silly. But, obviously it's coming to me for some purpose and reason. And 10 times out of 10, it made sense to the client. So I had to get out of my own way, and say, hey, this has nothing to do with you, V. Move over and just give this message. If it, applies, it applies. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But this is something that needs to be said. So.
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, like I said, I read an antique deck of cards from like the 1850s.
Oh,
the ones that I've read for like 30 years. I haven't touched them recently, but those were my only cards that I ever read with. And it's a combination of almost like the Grand Jeu Lenormand.
Okay.
Multiple images, geomancy, flowers, plants, it's all over the place. But it was all I ever read, for years. And other people look at it and it's just like, how do you read it? I can't tell you. There was no book on it. There was nothing to show you, teach you. But for me, it was a very, what's the word I want to use?
It was very natural.
It was natural and it was very plain because I read on a very modern level. So I took all the aspects that would be, from ages ago in the 1850s and the meanings, and I put all of them aside and I went specifically with imagery.
Okay.
Of the cards. So for me, it was a lot different than somebody reading like the Grand Jeu. But they worked for me. Mm-hmm. Now, you also work at the Boston Tea Room, and you teach too, correct?
Yes. I've been working at the Tea Room. I believe it's going on 5 years. And my boss there, Heatherly Navarre, she's amazing and great. It's funny, I started going to the shop because I was interested. It was like a safe haven. It always smelled great. It had crystals. And I would start getting readings with Heatherly. And, one of my readings, she told me, she's like, you can do this. And I'm like, no, no, I can't. And, the more I got interested and the more I got into it, I'm like, well, I'm interested and maybe I can. And I think it was 2013, I think it was, and had been going back and forth with her. And I, started to publicly read and getting my feet wet. And she just messaged me one day and said, hey, I need a new reader and I want you to come work for me. And I said, oh okay. And I was like, okay, and I kind of mentored under her a little bit because once I got comfortable with reading other people, I said, can I read you? Because this is your life's work. This is what you do. And I know that I would be on the right path if I were to read you and got constructive criticism and, all of that kind of good stuff that a student would want from a teacher. And, from there, she was just like, it was good. This is where you could have done a little bit better. And it helped me personally. And then when I got the call from her, it was something that I couldn't turn down. I stalked the tea room for years. Like I would go in and not buy anything, just hang out and suck up the air, so I just felt it was right to go back and actually work.
I did that with my godmother in the Botanica for years. I met her when she was in one of her stores in Albany. And she was moving to a new location a few blocks down. And I don't know what it was. She was just like, oh, I got free time. I just started helping her move stuff. And from there, she couldn't get rid of me. I was at the shop like all the time. And I was helping set things up and put things. And she's just like, what's this crazy-ass kid doing?
Yeah, it's. And I love it. I'm like I said, I'm a speech therapist, and I work in a school 9 to 5, and well, not those hours, but it's a full-time job. Yeah. So I work at the tea room probably about 5, maybe around 5 shifts a month, and it's usually on the weekends. So I've been, but in the summer when I work in a school, so in the summer when I'm off, I do more time at the tea room, and I absolutely love it. I love the area of Ferndale. I love the clients that come in. It's a very, colorful neighborhood and just great energy. And I've learned a lot, and I get to work with other people who are quote unquote weird like me. When it's just you kind of question yourself, like, am I the weirdo? Is it just me? But when you work with a bunch of weirdos, you're just like, yes, I have found my people. I feel comfortable, you know. And we all, it's a shop full of women. And so we all have our own gifts and our own talent. We've had men, you know, come in here and there. But right now it's all women at this time. But we all have our own gifts. We have our own, you know, set of tools. So we learn from one another and we practice on one another. And, you know, we hold classes. And so it's a great environment to learn and to be and to teach and it's just, yeah, it's really a great place.
Yeah, my godmother's shop was like that, and it's probably why I fell in love with it, and then started working part-time on my days off. And when I started going full-time, she just told me one day, bring your cards in, I want to take a look at them. I know they're really old. She didn't tell me I had a full day worth of readings.
Baptism by fire. I like it.
She just goes, here you go. Here's your client. Yeah. I was just like, what? She goes, you brought your cards, right? She goes, get to work.
Oh, yeah, baptism by fire. My first day working, I did the Pride Festival in Ferndale. So it's like outside readings, back to back, just go, you know? So that was my baptism by fire.
Yeah. Mine was nonstop. And the ones I had, it was an entire family. I should say extended family. I don't know if they were from Mexico or Guatemala. It was one of those two. But literally it was the mother, the daughter, the grandmother, the sons.
Wow.
I mean, like 15. And they all sat on the floor just waiting. They were there the entire day.
That is awesome. And how did you feel after that? How do you feel?
I was zapped.
Yeah.
I had time to eat a banana. That was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I call them spiritual hangovers. When I have days like that or when I do parties, when it's back to back to back, the next day I am like, I call it dead to the bed. Like I can barely get my head off the pillow. And I'm just like, I have no energy. I love it though. It's the best, you know, because I feel like I've done my job. I fulfilled part of my purpose, you know, by helping
it puts you on
other
a high,
people.
You know.
Oh, definitely.
As drained as you get, you know, it does put you on a different high. You know, even though your energy has been zapped and you've done everything. So, explain to me what you mean by mastering the A.D.D.
Okay, so A.D.D. For me is all day divining. Okay, and the reason I came up with that is because, like I told you, I am all over the place with, like I said, being, you know, a mom and being a therapist and having all these hobbies that, you know, light me up. I can't just sit, you know, and just and tackle one thing at a time. Usually I'm multitasking. And so all day divining is, you know, if I can't sit down with my cards and actually give myself a reading, it's like, well, how can I divine throughout my day? You know, so it's like, okay, I'll ask myself a question or something I want to know. And if I'm riding in the car, the first song that comes on the radio, what message do I get from that? And if I want to take it further, after listening to the song, what card in the tarot would I ascribe or attribute to that song? And there's my answer. You know, so it's like taking tarot off the table for me and doing the different things with it. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to eat for dinner, you know, flip a card, you know, what comes up. If it's something to, you know, if it's a cups card, okay, so we're going to have some sort of fish, you know. If we're having a pentacle card, okay, there's some meat. We're going to have, you know, something hearty for the bones. But it's just taking my way of divination off of the table and into my everyday life of constant moving and multitasking, kind of like ADD.
Okay, because that makes sense. See, I'm kind of the opposite. I'm the, okay, put it back in the box person.
Yeah.
I pull my stuff out when I read. When I'm done, I put my stuff away. Okay. And it has always been that. For me, it's more of like an on and off switch. Okay. You know, because I don't read for myself. You know, I'm a Scorpio. We tend to overthink and overprocess.
Just a little bit.
So I don't always want to know what's going on, because if it's something that, you know, could be a small bump, by the time I'm done thinking about it, it's like this huge, gigantic mountain. And it's just like,
Yes.